Hello, and welcome to today's second edition of the book discussion of the Iliad. And I'm on book one. And last week I only introduced the book. Today I'm going to get more into it. Especially, we're just going to delve into the first line, where it says, "Sing, goddess, the anger of Peneleus, son Achilles, and his devastation, which put pains thousandfold upon the Achaeans." So, we're going to talk about that first line. First of all, singing this. The Iliad was originally a song. And one of the reasons why I think it was a song is because I know everything that you memorize better, you can memorize it better in a song. I have kids that I deal with autism, that you give them a good song and they know all the words. So I really think that this is how they were able to carry this over 400 years of history before writing it down, was they did it through song. And it probably wasn't singing like, a cappella or whatever, or really high notes. It's more like, like rap is a song. And I wouldn't say this would be rap, but it'd be more like a sing-song type of song. And when it says goddess, I'm assuming they mean the muses, because that's where we get the word music from. Muses were the goddesses that were in control of all the arts. So there was one for music, there's one for poetry, there's one for, art in general. So it was like all of these different it's a whole little batch of goddesses of what they believed. They took everything literal. So the Greeks took things literal, and that's why we get a lot of our words from the Greeks, because they literally had characters that later became words that we use in the English language that mean the same thing. And then it's the anger of Achilles. And Peneleus' son, obviously that was his father. But this shows you that this is a war that deals with human feelings, human emotions. I do believe that this was an actual war. This does have a lot of fanciful things in it, but a lot of it is based on things that are archaeologically sound. Like, they know where Troy is. They know where Agamemnon's grave is. They know the basic premise of the Trojan War. And obviously, academics have tossed this aside as a complete mythology, but I don't feel it is a complete mythology. I feel like this is the battle of all battles that took down the Bronze Age. And we're going to get into that at a certain point. And I think there's a lot of archaeological evidence, especially recent archaeological evidence that is coming out. And for instance, Hittites, which Troy was a vassal of the Hittites. So I don't know if you've watched the movie Troy. I think that you guys all know what the Battle of Troy was about. So Paris, who was a prince of Troy, was given the choice of three goddesses and had to choose which one was the prettiest. I'm just going to give you the basic overlay. And he chose that he wanted the prettiest girl in the world. So Aphrodite gave him that because he chose her, because she promised him the prettiest girl. And so they sailed to Sparta, where the most beautiful woman ever lived is Helen. She's married to Menelaus, the king of Sparta. They run away together. They go back to Troy. Menelaus gathers up all his armies, because they were all the chiefs they had an alliance that if Helen ever got taken, they'd all fight for her. So 1,000 ships are launched to go to Troy, supposedly to bring Helen back, but actually they're really just there to burn it to the ground. So Greeks are clearly the aggressors in this situation, but this book and the other book try to paint them still as heroes because, well, this is the Greek story. They can't be all bad guys. So they are clearly the aggressors in this story. But Troy was loosely aligned with the civilization known as the Hittites. And the Hittites was a Bronze Age civilization that collapsed after the Trojan War. They didn't even know it existed until the late 1800s. There's this German archaeologist just wandering around Turkey and in the hills. He's like, there's all these cities here, there's all these palaces here. I don't know what this place is. And it turns out it was the Hittite Empire. And the Hittites have these huge libraries of cuneiform tablets, which cuneiform are these wedge-shaped like writing, but they couldn't translate any of it. And cuneiform is an Eastern version of, or the ancient Eastern version of the alphabet. And so it's very unfamiliar, and all these are ancient languages. They're dead languages that we don't speak anymore. So it's been very difficult to translate them. And recently, and I'm not a big fan of AI, but AI has managed to translate a bunch of them. And there is records of, and they're more official records. This is like a fanciful romantic version of the story. The Hittite records are more like, yeah, there were these, aggressors from the west, and they called them like Castellars, Achaeans. They basically call them the Achaeans, which is exactly what they call themselves, the Achaeans. We call them the Mycenaean Greeks just to kind of coalesce them, but they were many different tribes, and mostly like a city-state type of thing, because they didn't really have like a big civilization yet. They kind of all spoke the same language. They were aligned a little bit through marriage and whatnot. The other thing I wanted to say about Troy is where it was located was right where the Straits of they call it the Straits of Dardanelles, which it's a very important strait. It's in lots and lots and lots of, it comes up a lot in ancient history, because this area is fought over numerous times. Like the Persians, when they came over to Greece, they had to go over the same strait. Then Alexander the Great, when he wanted to conquer Persia, he had to go over the same strait. Then the Byzantine, or the Byzantines, that's actually where Constantinople used to lie. The Byzantines created this big, massive city called Constantinople there. And then, of course, the Turks took that over. So, I mean, it's just been a warring place back and forth, because that strait's so important for trade. And I think that the Bronze Age depended on trade, which the Mycenaean Greeks demolished that when they demolished Troy and the surrounding area. I don't think that Troy was, I think Troy was like the icing on the cake. That was the city to get. But the way that the Hittite records are starting to show is like when the Greeks came over, they made alliances with a bunch of the other surrounding Trojan towns. And so they were allies, and they sent warriors and this, that, and the other thing. So Troy was kind of like on its own. But as you will see, the Achaeans, as these people are calling themselves, the Achaeans are also looting and savaging the surrounding areas. Okay, so this is devastation that put pains thousandfold upon the Achaeans, hurled in their multitudes to the house of Hades, strong souls of heroes, but gave their bodies to the delicate feasting of dogs, all birds, and the will of Zeus was accomplished. Okay, so in this book, thousandfold don't die. we have, I would say, a couple hundred people dying. So this thousandfold, I think, is more extensive. I think the Greeks, hearing this, knew that it was more extensive than just one battle. I think that what this references to is like an apocalyptic type of battle. What, like, it's the war to end all wars. It's the battle to end all battles. This was the battle. And this is the battle that destroyed the Mycenaean Greek civilization, because they were the victim of their own success. Because they launched 1,000 ships full of young men, all the fighting men in Greece and the surrounding area. And how many came back? Probably hardly any. So they lost, in that interim, they lost their civilization, because 400 years they've gone through, when this is written, has been a dark age. They went from the Bronze Age down to the Iron Age, which you would think in your brain, you would say, oh, they must be more advanced. No, they lost more, because once you go from bronze, which requires a lot, it's like metallurgy, it's a lot of conglomerates of different types of metals to make bronze. And you go to iron, which is, it's easier to make because it just is found materials that you can make. So once you go, so that's a downgrade. So they lost their trade routes, and they lost civilization on top of that. And they lost their own civilization, and the Hittites lost it. And obviously, Troy ends up a heaping pile of just smoking city. There was nothing left of this afterwards. All right. And the will of Zeus was accomplished. Now, obviously, when it comes to any of these type of things, they have to always have it partitioned that God willed this to happen. Otherwise, why would you have anything happen? The Bible does the same thing. If anything happens to the Israelis or the Jews or whoever, it's always the will of God, and it's always either they have annoyed God somehow by breaking their oaths or doing something wrong, and you will see that in this case, it shows a very clear break that they did to deserve this. All right. And what God was it that set them together in bitter collision? Zeus's son and Leto's Apollo, who in anger at the king drove a foul pestilence along the host, and the people perished, since Atreus' son had dishonored Christus, priest of Apollo. Okay, so first of all, let's go over who is Apollo. Apollo is another god. He is the one that is in charge of wellness and sickness. So if people got sick, they blamed it on Apollo because he was in charge of that. So the way that the Greeks saw their gods is that, God's really busy, so God gives a lot of his duties to other gods. And these gods have real strong personalities. Like, you don't tick off a god. Like, it just don't do it. And so here, Apollo has anger at the king. And foul pestilence, so that was a plague. So there's a plague upon the Achaeans, also the Mycenaeans. They also call themselves the Danaans. So there are all these different names for the same peoples, but everyone kind of conglomerates them into the Greeks, because that's how we can absorb things, because otherwise we can't keep up. All right. And Atreus' son is Agamemnon. If anyone knows who Agamemnon is, Agamemnon is the king of Argos, and he's kind of in command because he has 60 ships. He has a very large army, and so they've given him in charge of this operation. Menelaus is his brother, who's the king of Sparta, whose wife is Helen. So this is how this all. And Atreus was obviously their father. Had dishonored Chryses, the priest of Apollo, when he came beside the fast ships of the Achaeans to ransom back his daughter, carrying gifts beyond count, and holding in his hands the wound on his staff of gold, the ribbons of Apollo, who strikes from afar, and supplicated all the Achaeans. So Chryses, who is the priest of Apollo, and obviously we're not really like ancient times, a staff of gold with ribbons. So that of Apollo's. So you can just visualize what that looked like back then, with a ship with a bunch of gifts beyond count, and supplicated all the Achaeans. So he begged them. He's begging the Achaeans for his daughter back that he loves. All right. But above all, Atreus' two sons, Menelaus and Agamemnon, the marshals of the people, son of Atreus, and you other strong grieved Achaeans, to you may the gods grant, who have their homes on Olympus, Priam's city to be plundered, and a fair homecoming thereafter. But that you may give me back my own daughter and take this ransom, giving honor to Zeus's son, who strikes from afar, Apollo. So he's begging for his daughter back. He's like, I don't care what you do. Go ahead and take Troy, burn it to the ground. Let the God's will be done, but just give me back my daughter. And he's obviously a priest of Apollo. Then all the rest of the Achaeans cried out in favor that the priest be respected and the shining ransom be taken. Yet this pleased not the heart of Atreus' son Agamemnon, but harshly he drove him away with a strong order upon him. Never let me find you, old sir, near our hollow ships, neither lingering now nor coming again thereafter, for fear your staff and the gods' ribbons will help you no longer. The girl I will not give back. Sooner will old age come upon her in my own house in Argos, far away from her own land, going up and down by the loom, and being in my bed as my companion. So now go, and do not make me angry, so you will be safer. So Agamemnon's just being a total jerk here. He's like, yeah, get out of here, old man. I'm going to keep this girl. You can come up with all your ransom. I don't care. So he's really harsh with this old man. And he's like, I don't care if you're from Apollo. I don't care who you are. I like her, and I'm going to keep her. So Agamemnon spoke, and the old man in terror obeyed him, and went silently beside the murmuring sea beach. Over and over the old man prayed as he walked in solitude to King Apollo, whom Leda of the lovely hair bore. Hear me, Lord of the silver bow, who set your power about Christi and Killa the Senescrapt. You who are Lord in strength over Tendos, Smithus, if it ever pleased your heart that I build your temple, if it ever pleased you that I burned all the rich thigh pieces of bulls and goats, then bring me to pass what I wish for. Let your arrows make the Danaans pay for my shared tears shed. So what I find with ancient old texts, there'll be a lot of words I don't know. And there'll be a lot of references that I might not catch or understand. I don't know who Christi and Killa the Sacrament are. You are a Lord in strength over Tenedos, Smithus. What I do is I kind of just pass over them because I'm not gonna know, and that's okay. If I'll find where those words come from, I'll be happy. But you can tell by what he's saying that the way that he honors his God and this was very common in ancient times, was to do a sacrifice of thigh pieces of bulls, of goats. And now he's praying like, hey, I did all this for you. I pray to you every day. I'm a great priest. Now I'm praying for you to let your arrows make the Danaans pay for my tears shed. The Danaans are also the Achaeans, who are also the Mycenaean Greeks. So first read of this, you will not understand who these, because you keep mentioning different people, but they're all the same people. So he spoke in prayer, and Apollo heard him, and strode down along the pinnacles of Olympus, angered in his heart, carrying across his shoulders the bow and the hooded quiver, and the shafts clashed on the shoulders of the god, walking angrily. And he came as night comes down, and knelt apart and opposite the ships, and let go of the arrow. Terrible was the clash that rose from the bow of silver. First he went after the mules and circling hounds, and let go a tearing arrow upon the men themselves, and struck them. The corpse fires burned everywhere, and did not stop burning. So this is a very visual, a very romantic way of stating that the plague arrived. Like, yes, Homer could have just said there was a plague, and it was awful, and there was a bunch of people that died. But he loves to use this poetic imagery. So you have a image in your mind of the god like coming down angrily the mountain, on top of Mount Olympus, where all the gods of the Greeks live on top of Mount Olympus, and all they do all day is they live in this magnificent palace, and they throw very large parties, and they drink ambrosia all day. And then when somebody upsets them or someone prays to them, then they show up. But it's a romantic version of this. Obviously they believed in these gods, as that's why this gets kind of deemed into the fan fiction. You put this in the fiction section, because these are literal, they're literal imagery of something that we know that there is not probably a god that lives on top of Mount Olympus. It's going to come down and shoot arrows at people, and then they're going to get sick. Like, this is like the portion that's in the invisible realm, that it's a complete imagination, or what we Americans would think of as imagination. I don't know what they thought back then. All right. 9 days up and down the host raged the gods' arrows. But on the 10th, Achilles called the people to assembly, a thing put into his mind by the goddess of the white arms, Hera. Hera, she is the goddess that is married to Zeus, and she's also the goddess who is in charge of family and marriage. And she also, Achilles is one of her favorites. So gods pick favorites, and then they kind of route for them, and they petition Zeus like, hey, my guy, he's really cool, or whatnot. So these are personal gods. Like, they actually either really route for you or they really hate you. So it's you try your hardest not to tick off gods, but you also try to make them like you. So it's a very personal, the Greeks had a very personal relationship. Sometimes, you say Athena was your great, awesome god that you really loved. You prayed to her. She showed up full gleaming armor with a spear, and she's like, which way are the enemies? Which way do I go? And that's how they believed. But in this case, like a lot of times, they would appear to you and no one else. So you could be standing in a whole crowd of people, and this beautiful goddess just appears to you, or a beautiful god appears to you, and nobody else sees them except you. So, and then they say something profound to you, and then you're like, oh, okay, thank you. You know? Now that they all assembled in one place, Achilles of the swift feet stood up among them and spoke forth. Son of Atreus, that's Agamemnon. Let's get that right, because they, like I said, they name names that are the same people. I believe now that straggling backwards, we must make our way home if we can all escape death. If fighting may now crush the Achaeans and the plague else likewise. No, let some holy man, some prophet, even an interpreter of dreams, since a dream also comes from Zeus, who can tell us why is Apollo so angry? If for the sake of some vow or hecatomb he blames us, if given the fragrant smoke of lambs, of he goats, somehow can he be willing to beat the bane aside from us? So obviously Achilles can't come right out and blame Agamemnon. He has to say, we have to go to our holiest guy, because obviously a prophet, so an interpreter of dreams. These are all people that are in the circle of the ancient Greeks. Prophets, interpreter of dreams, kind of like their version of a holy man. Like, what could possibly be wrong? Why is Apollo so angry? So is it a sake of a vow? So you don't break vows. Like, that's like number one Greek no-nos. Okay. Hecatomb is the sacrifice. So I think it means, I looked it up. I had to look it up because I didn't know what a hecatomb was. A hecatomb is 100 bulls. So you sacrifice 100 bulls, and then you have a big barbecue, and everyone eats. And you do it for your god. And it's really weird because it sounds like you have a very large barbecue, everyone drinks and makes merry and celebrates God. I don't get it. Obviously, this is ancient Greece stuff. Okay. If given, so the fragrant smoke of lambs, he goats. Okay, so willing to beat the bane aside from us. He spoke thus and then sat down again, and among them stood up, I'm going to butcher the name, Calchas, Thestor's son, by far the best of the bird interpreters. So, I mean, that right there, he's the best bird interpreter we've got. He looked at that bird and he knew everything. So I will say, like, every while you have to just take it with a grain of salt. I can't imagine making like a military decision in present day over like bird interpretations. Like, yeah, I saw this crow and I saw an eagle, and so therefore I know what we need to do. Who knew all things that were, the things to come, and the things that past. So he knew everything. And this guy is a great bird interpreter. Who guided into the land of Iliad the ships of the Achaeans through that seer craft of his own that Apollo had given up. So the land of Iliad, that's Troy. This is hence the name. Wait. The Iliad. Okay. Iliad also means Troy. Like I said, they switch names around for all these things, but they all mean the same thing. So you just have to kind of follow along with all the different names they give to the same thing. All right. He, in kind intention towards all, stood forth and addressed them. You have bidden me, Achilles, beloved of Zeus, to explain to you this anger of Apollo, the Lord who strikes from afar. Then I will speak. Yet make me a promise and swear before me, readily by word and work of your hands to defend me, since I believe I will make a man angry who holds great kingship over men in Argos, and all the Achaeans will obey him. So he's scared. He knows what he's going to say is going to be unpopular to the guy in charge. So, and it's, I think, like, you have these seers who can prophesy, but then there's also this idea of, well, we know what's obviously looking in front of us. We can tell what's going on, but we have to go to the seer because he's got the official title as the bird interpreter. I'm going to try not to laugh. Okay. All right. For a king, when he is angry with a man beneath him that is too strong, and suppose even for the day itself he swallows down his anger, he still keeps his bitterness that remains until its fulfillment deep in his chest. Speak forth then, and tell me if you will protect me. He's like, Achilles, you have to protect me. You are tough, you are strong, you're the best warrior we got. I'm this little old man who interprets birds. I don't have a sword. I'm a little guy. I have no power. You have to protect me because otherwise I can't talk. Then in anger, again, spoke Achilles of the swift feet, because he's a warrior like that. Speak, interpreting whatever you know, and fear nothing. In the name of Apollo, beloved of Zeus, to whom you, Calchas, make your prayers when you interpret the god's will to the Danaans. No man, so long as I am alive, above earth, and see daylight, shall lay the weight of his hands on you beside the hollow ships. No man's going to touch you. No one. No one's going to touch me. Not while I'm alive. That's what Achilles is saying. Not one of all the Danaans, and even if you mean Agamemnon, who now claims to be the far greatest of the Achaeans, the guy in charge. At this, the blameless, see how they made him? Oh, he's such a blameless seer. He only wants the best for everyone, and the best of bird interpretations. Okay. Now at this, the blameless seer took courage again and spoke forth. No, it is not for the sake of some vow or hecatomb he blames us, but for the sake of his priest, whom Agamemnon dishonored and would not give back his daughter, nor accept the ransom. So, Apollo isn't mad. This is the reason. Everybody knows the reason. But it took Mr. Bird Interpreter to actually tell them. Okay. Therefore the archer sends griefs against us and will send them still. Nor sooner thrust back the shameful plague from the Danaans until we give back the glancing-eyed girl back to her father, without price, without ransom, and also leave a blessed hecatomb to Christi. Thus we may prodicate and persuade him. So we got to give back the girl. We also got to give him a great barbecue, because that's what a hecatomb is. And not just any hecatomb. It's a blessed hecatomb. So a blessed barbecue to Christi, who is the priest of Apollo. The old man that Agamemnon said, pack it. And said, don't you come back here. So now you got to be nice to the old man. And you got to give him a really good barbecue. Just saying. He thus spoke and sat down again. And among them stood up Atreus' son, the hero wide-ruling Agamemnon, raging, the heart within filled black to the brim with anger from beneath, but his two eyes showed like fire in their blazing. First of all, he eyed Calchas bitterly and spoke to him, seer of evil, never have you told me a good thing. Only evil things are dear to you, to your heart to prophesy. But nothing excellent have you said nor ever accomplished. For now once more you make a divination to the Danaans, argue forth your reasons as to why who strikes from afar, Apollo, afflicts them. In other words, gives them a plague. But I, for the sake of the girl Christis, would not take the shining ransom. Indeed, I wish greatly to have her in my own house, since I like her better than Clemestra, his wife, my own wife, for in truth she is no ways inferior, neither in build, nor stature, nor wit, not in accomplishment. Still I am willing to give her back, if such be the best way. I desire myself that my people be safe and not perish. Oh, that's nice. You don't want everyone to die. Find me then some prize that shall be my own, lest I only among the Argives, there they go, renaming the Greeks again, go without, since they were unfitting. You are all witness to this thing, that my prize goes elsewhere. He's like, look, we took her fair and square. We looted. This is what we do. I took her. She's mine. She's my prize. I'm losing my prize. I need somebody else's prize. I'm not happy. You're an evil guy because I'm losing mine. I'm the best here and I need one from someone else. So I'm going to end that here because I talked 36 minutes and my discussion was only going to be 30 minutes and we are only on page 4 of book 1. So you guys have a nice night. Maybe next week I will come with another look at how much of the book we have to go through. But I am going to try and skip around a little bit. But this part I have to kind of lay out for you because this is where the whole fight comes from. You know, some of the other parts I will be able to skip. But this part I have to kind of go over. All right, have a nice night.